You know what they don't tell you in medical school? That somewhere out there in the galaxy, there's a job waiting for you that makes emergency room duty on Earth look like a relaxing spa vacation. Welcome to Station Omega 7, where I, Dr. Maya Rodriguez, have the distinct honor of running the galaxy's most chaotic emergency clinic. And when I say chaotic, I mean the kind of place where your Tuesday morning starts with a Zephyrian having an allergic reaction to their own tentacles. Dr. Rodriguez, came the overly cheerful voice of Bert, my AI assistant. We have a code blue in Bay 3. The patient appears to be experiencing explosive digestive distress. Explosive being the operative word, I muttered, grabbing my medical kit. What species? Blobarian. They've consumed what appears to be carbonated beverages. I stopped dead in my tracks. Please tell me you mean they drank soda, not that they literally ate the bubbles. I'm afraid they consumed 17 bottles of Terran Coca-Cola, Doctor. The carbonation is causing their gelatinous structure to expand at an alarming rate. Through the observation window, I could see what looked like a translucent beach ball bouncing frantically around the examination room, occasionally burping with the force of a small explosion. Just another Tuesday at the worst medical facility in 3 sectors. Bert, prep the gastric suction unit. The big one. Already prepared, Doctor. Though I should mention, we're expecting a visit from the Galactic Health Authority today for our annual inspection. Of course we were. Because nothing says professional medical facility like a blobarian literally bouncing off the walls while I try to deflate them with what amounts to a cosmic shop vac. I was halfway through explaining to the blobarian why drinking 17 sodas was a bad idea when the ceiling exploded. Not metaphorically. Literally. Chunks of metal and insulation rained down as something the size of a small shuttle crashed through 3 levels of station infrastructure and landed with a bone-rattling thud on my examination table. The table, built to withstand the weight of a fully grown Titanox, crumpled like paper. Well, I said, staring at the smoking wreckage, that's new. The smoke cleared to reveal something that looked like someone had crossed a dragon with a professional wrestler and given the result anger management issues. Scales the color of burnished copper covered a humanoid frame that stood at least 8 feet tall, with wings that were currently bent at angles that made my orthopedic training cringe. Blood, an alarming shade of purple, was pooling beneath the creature. Draconis warrior, Bert announced helpfully. Species designation, Korrath of the Flame Wing clan. Current status, dying. Yeah, I can see that, Bert. I grabbed my trauma kit and approached cautiously. Draconis warriors were known for 2 things: their incredible fighting prowess and their absolute refusal to accept help from anyone they considered beneath them. Which, according to their cultural database, included literally every other species in the galaxy. Korrath's eyes opened, revealing pupils that glowed like molten gold. He looked at me with the kind of disdain usually reserved for something you'd scrape off your shoe. Human, he growled, his voice like grinding stone, do not dare touch me. Right, I said, snapping on my gloves. Good to meet you too. Now hold still while I save your ungrateful life. I said, do not touch me, small creature. Korrath tried to sit up and immediately collapsed back down with a pained grunt that sounded like a landslide. I would rather die with honor than be saved by a lesser being. Well, that's convenient, I said, scanning him with my medical tricorder, because at the rate you're bleeding, you're going to get your wish in about 15 minutes. The scanner results made me wince. 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, severe internal bleeding, and something that looked like poison working its way through his system. This wasn't just trauma from the crash. Someone had tried to kill him. Bert, what's the standard treatment protocol for Draconis physiology? I'm afraid I cannot provide that information, Doctor. What do you mean you can't provide it? According to Galactic Medical Regulations, Section 47B, the treatment of Draconis warriors by non-Draconis medical personnel is strictly prohibited without explicit consent from both the patient and the Draconis High Command. I stared at the AI's holographic interface. Are you telling me that I'm legally not allowed to save this idiot's life? That is correct, Doctor. The Draconis Empire considers medical intervention by other species to be a violation of their warrior code. Korrath managed a weak but smug smile. You see, human? Even your own laws recognize that I must die as a warrior, not be saved by the likes of you. Oh, for crying out loud. I turned back to Korrath, who was definitely looking paler. Look, Scaly. I don't know what kind of warrior code nonsense you've got going on, but I've got a medical oath that says I save lives. All lives. Even lives belonging to ungrateful, stubborn, overgrown lizards. I am not a lizard. Korrath roared, then immediately regretted it as his wounds opened further. I am a warrior of the Flamewing clan. My ancestors have fought in the great battles of... Yeah, great battles, honor, glory, I get it. I was already prepping an IV line. Here's the thing, though. You want to die a warrior's death? Fine. But this isn't a warrior's death. This is a moron's death. You've been poisoned. It got his attention. The golden eyes focused on me with sudden intensity. What did you say? Poison. Specifically, something called Draconis bane. Ring any bells? I held up the tricorder readings. Someone really wanted you dead, and they didn't want to give you the chance to die fighting about it. Korrath's expression shifted from stubborn pride to cold fury. Impossible. No one would dare use poison against a warrior of my standing. Well, someone did. And here's the kicker. If you die from poison instead of dying in battle, what does your warrior code say about that? The silence stretched long enough for Bert to chime in helpfully. According to Draconis cultural records, death by poison is considered the most dishonorable way for a warrior to die, as it prevents them from fighting their final battle. Korrath's face went through several interesting color changes. You are saying that someone has tried to rob me of an honorable death? Bingo. So here's what I'm thinking. I leaned against the ruined examination table. You can either lie there and let some coward's poison kill you, which makes you the galaxy's most disappointed, dishonored warrior. Or you can let me patch you up so you can go find whoever did this and introduce them to your definition of an honorable death. Bert, Korrath said slowly, if this human heals me so that I may seek vengeance against the one who poisoned me, does this violate the warrior code? Actually, Bert said, sounding surprised, according to subsection 15C of the Draconis Warrior Code, that accepting aid to prevent a dishonorable death is not only permitted but encouraged, provided the warrior seeks appropriate vengeance afterward. I grinned. So what's it going to be, big guy? Death by poison like a chump, or let the clever human doctor fix you up so you can go roast whoever did this? Korrath glared at me for a long moment, then let out what might have been a laugh. It hadn't sounded like a rock slide. You are manipulative, small human. I prefer strategically persuasive. Now hold still. This is going to hurt, and I really don't want you deciding to eat me halfway through the procedure. 20 minutes later, I had Korrath stabilized enough that he wasn't going to die in the next hour, but that was about all I could do with standard medical supplies. The poison was still working its way through his system, and his unique Draconis physiology was fighting both the toxin and my treatment. Bert, what do we know about Draconis bane? It's a synthetic neurotoxin specifically designed to target Draconis nervous systems. Highly illegal, extremely expensive, and almost impossible to obtain. Almost? There are currently 3 vials in existence. One was used on our patient, one is in the private collection of crime boss Vex the Notorious, and one is secured in the Galactic Health Authority's restricted medical vault for research purposes. Korrath propped up on what remained of my examination table, growled softly. Vex the Notorious? That worthless smuggler? He would not dare. Actually, I interrupted. Vex owes me a favor. Big one. I saved his life last year when he came in with a case of Rigelian flu that would have killed him in 6 hours. So we simply asked this criminal to provide the antidote? Korrath asked. Not exactly. See, the thing about crime bosses is they don't just give away incredibly rare and valuable poisons. But the Galactic Health Authority vault? That's different. They've got the antidote locked up for research. Bert's hologram flickered nervously. Doctor, you're not seriously considering breaking into a GA facility? Of course not, Bert. That would be illegal and dangerous and completely against my medical oath. I was already pulling up the station schematics on my tablet. I'm considering borrowing medical supplies from the Giab vault to save a patient's life. Totally different thing. That is literally the same thing, Doctor. Details. I turned to Korrath. Can you walk? I am a warrior. Of course I can walk. He tried to stand up and immediately grabbed the wall for support. Perhaps with assistance. Right, Bert. Call Zeke in maintenance. Tell him I need a favor and it involves crawling through ventilation shafts. Dr. Rodriguez, came a new voice from the doorway. What exactly happened to my clinic? I turned to see Captain Vex standing in the remains of my doorway, looking around at the destruction with what might have been amusement. Vex was what happened when you crossed a pirate with a used ship salesman and added just enough charm to be dangerous. He was also one of the few beings in the galaxy who actually scared me, which was saying something. Vex. Perfect timing. I need that favor. The one where I owe you my life because you cured my Regellian flu? That's the one. Vex looked at Korrath, who was trying to look intimidating while leaning heavily against a wall. Let me guess. You need to break into somewhere you shouldn't be to get something you shouldn't have to save someone who probably doesn't deserve it. Wow. You really do know me. And if we get caught? We won't get caught. And if we do get caught anyway? Then we'll be in really big trouble together. Come on, Vex. Where's your sense of adventure? Vex sighed, the kind of sigh reserved for people who were about to make terrible decisions. Fine. But after this, we're even. Neil. Zeke arrived 10 minutes later, covered in grease and carrying a toolbox that looked like it had survived several small explosions. Hey Doc, what's the emergency? And why is there a dragon in your clinic? Not a dragon. And it's complicated. I need you to get us into the GA medical vault. Zeke blinked. The super secure, absolutely no way to break into vault. That's the one. Cool. I know a guy who knows a guy who once dated someone who worked security there. Will that help? I looked at Vex, who shrugged. It's better than nothing. The Galactic Health Authority vault was located in the most secure section of Station Omega-7, protected by enough sensors, guards, and automated defenses to stop a small army. Our plan was elegant in its simplicity. Zeke would disable the security systems from the maintenance tunnels. Vex would create a distraction at the main entrance, and I would slip in through the service access to grab the antidote. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong. And it did. Zeke, I whispered into my comm unit, please tell me you've got the security grid down. About that, Doc. I think I might have accidentally triggered the emergency lockdown instead. Alarms began blaring throughout the section. Emergency lights bathed everything in flashing red. Automated voice announced, security breach detected. All personnel report to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Defying accidentally, I hissed, pressed against the wall in the service corridor. Well, there were a lot of wires and they were all the same color and I thought the red one would turn off the red lights, you know? But apparently red means activate everything at once. Vex, I called over the comm, please tell me your distraction is going better. Define better, came Vex's voice, sounding slightly out of breath. Because I'm currently being chased by 6 security guards and what appears to be an automated defense turret. How is that better? Well, they're all chasing me instead of looking for you. See? Distraction. I could hear blaster fire in the background. Are you being shot at? Only a little bit. The vault door was just ahead, and miraculously, it was standing open. Apparently, Zeke's accidental lockdown had triggered the emergency access protocols. I slipped inside and found myself in a room that looked like a cross between a pharmacy and a museum. Hundreds of vials, samples, and medical specimens were arranged in perfect order behind climate-controlled glass. Bert, I whispered, where's the Draconis Bane antidote? Section 7G, Shelf 4, container marked DB antidote experimental. I found it quickly enough, a small vial filled with what looked like liquid silver. I was reaching for it when a voice behind me said, "Step away from the restricted materials." I turned around slowly to find myself face to face with Director Grimm, the head of security for the entire GOF facility. Grimm looked exactly like his name suggested, tall, thin, humorless, and about as friendly as a tax audit. "Director Grimm," I said, trying to sound casual while standing in the middle of a high-security vault holding stolen medical supplies. "Funny meeting you here." "Dr. Rodriguez." "Natural. You are in violation of approximately 17 different galactic health regulations, 3 station security protocols, and at least 1 treaty with the Draconis Empire. Actually, about that treaty. You will step away from the antidote and surrender yourself for processing. See, here's the thing. I've got a dying Draconis warrior in my clinic who's been poisoned with this stuff." I held up the vial. "And according to the Hippocratic Oath, I'm supposed to save lives, not let them die because of paperwork. The Hippocratic Oath does not supersede galactic law." "Maybe not, but it supersedes my give a damn about your regulations." Grimm reached for his stunner, but before he could draw it, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, but that second was all I needed to dive behind a storage unit. "Zeke," I called into my comm, "please tell me that was intentional. I have no idea what I did, but the entire security grid just reset. Also, I think I might be stuck in a ventilation shaft." "How stuck?" "Like really stuck. Send help. Vex, status report." "Good news? I'm not being shot at anymore. Bad news? I'm trapped in a supply closet. Also bad news. I think the defense turret is trying to cut through the door." I looked around the storage unit at Director Grimm, who was methodically checking each hiding spot. "Dr. Rodriguez, this is pointless. Surrender now and I'll recommend leniency." "Counter-offer," I called back. "I take this antidote, save a life, and you pretend this never happened. That is not how galactic law works." "Come on, Grimm. Where's your sense of medical ethics? First, do no harm, right?" "I am not a doctor, Dr. Rodriguez. I am a security director. My job is to prevent theft, not enable it." That's when inspiration struck. "Bert," I whispered, "what's the regulation about emergency medical requisitions during life-threatening situations?" "Galactic Health Code, Section 23A. Medical personnel may requisition necessary supplies from any GI facility during legitimate medical emergencies, provided proper documentation is filed within 48 hours. "Did you hear that, Director Grimm?" I called out. "This isn't theft. It's an emergency medical requisition. You did not file the proper paperwork." "I'll file it later. I've got 48 hours. There was a long pause. Then Grimm said, "You are seriously claiming this is a legitimate emergency requisition?" "Dying patient, rare poison, only known antidote. Sounds pretty emergency-ish to me." Another pause. "Present your medical credentials and patient documentation." I pulled out my medical ID and Korrath scans. Here. 1 dying Draconis warrior, poisoned with Draconis bane, requiring immediate treatment with the antidote you're standing next to. Grimm studied the documents with the same expression he might use to examine something unpleasant he'd found on his shoe. This patient refused treatment. He changed his mind. Draconis warriors do not change their minds about medical treatment. This one did. Ask him yourself. I intend to. Grimm activated his comm unit. Security to Medical Bay 7. Verify the presence and condition of 1 Korrath of the Flamewing clan. A few moments later, sir, we have a very large, very angry Draconis warrior who claims he's been poisoned and demands immediate medical treatment. He's also threatening to eat anyone who delays his treatment. Grimm looked at me with something that might have been respect. You manipulated a Draconis warrior into accepting medical treatment. I prefer strategically persuaded. Fine, take the antidote. But I want that paperwork filed within 24 hours, not 48. Deal. I grabbed the vial and headed for the door, then stopped. By the way, you might want to send someone to get Zeke out of the ventilation system. And maybe check on Vex. I think your defense turret is winning. By the time I got back to the clinic, Korrath looked worse. The poison had progressed, and his breathing was shallow and labored. I administered the antidote immediately, but after 15 minutes, his condition hadn't improved. Bert, why isn't the antidote working? Scanning now, doctor. Oh dear. Oh dear is not something I want to hear from my medical AI, Bert. The antidote is neutralizing the poison, but the Draconis bane has already caused severe damage to the patient's secondary cardiovascular system. I stared at the readout. His what now? Draconis warriors have 2 hearts, doctor. The poison specifically targets the secondary heart, which regulates their combat reflexes and pain response. The organ is severely damaged and will need to be surgically repaired or replaced. And I'm guessing this is another one of those procedures I'm not legally allowed to perform? Correct. Surgery on Draconis anatomy requires specialized training and certification that takes approximately 7 years to complete. Korrath's eyes fluttered open. Human doctor, he rasped, I feel strange. Yeah, about that. Good news, the poison is neutralized. Bad news. It already damaged one of your hearts. One of my... Wait. You knew I had 2 hearts? I do now. The question is, do you want me to try to fix it, or would you prefer to wait for a properly certified Draconis surgeon to arrive in, about 6 hours? Will I live that long? Probably not. Korrath closed his eyes. Then you must try. Bert, pull up everything we have on Draconis anatomy. And I mean everything. Doctor, I must protest. This procedure has never been performed by a human. Then I guess I'm about to make medical history. Start recording. What followed was the most terrifying hour of my medical career. Draconis anatomy was like human anatomy designed by someone who thought everything should be bigger, more redundant, and significantly more likely to kill you if you made a mistake. The secondary heart was located behind the primary heart, surrounded by enough blood vessels to supply a small city. Incision looks good, I muttered, trying to keep my hands steady. Bert, how's his blood pressure? Primary heart is maintaining adequate circulation. Secondary heart shows minimal function. Right. Now comes the fun part. I located the damaged organ, which looked like someone had taken a normal heart and decided it needed more spikes. The poison crystallized in the cardiac tissue. I need to extract the crystals without damaging the surrounding muscle. Dr. Bert said nervously, I'm detecting multiple security teams approaching the clinic. What kind of security teams? Both Galactic Health Authority and Draconis Honor Guard. Of course there are. I continued working, carefully extracting tiny crystalline fragments from Korrath's secondary heart. How long do I have? Approximately 10 minutes before they reach this level. Plenty of time. A crystal fragment came free, and Korrath's vital signs immediately improved. See? Piece of cake. That's when the power went out. Bert, please tell me you have backup power for surgical procedures. Backup power is functioning, doctor. However, life support is now operating on emergency reserves. How long? Approximately 8 minutes. I activated my emergency surgical light and kept working. You know, Bert, when I graduated medical school, I thought I'd end up treating humans on nice, safe Earth. Maybe handle a few alien tourists at most. How did you end up here, doctor? Terrible life choices and an overactive sense of adventure. Another crystal came free. Almost got it. Korrath, you still with me? I am here, human doctor. This is unpleasant. Yeah, heart surgery tends to be. But look on the bright side, if I succeed, you'll be the first Draconis warrior ever treated by a human surgeon. That's got to be worth some kind of honor points. If you succeed, he said weakly, I will consider you a warrior of medicine. I like that. Bert, how are we doing on time? Security teams are in the corridor outside. Our reserves at 3 minutes. I extracted the final crystal fragment and began closing the incision. Come on, come on. The secondary heart gave a weak flutter, then began beating in rhythm with the primary heart. Korrath's breathing improved immediately, and his color began to return to normal. Bert, how's he looking? All vital signs are stabilizing. Doctor, I believe the procedure was successful. The door burst open just as I finished the final suture. Director Grimm entered, followed by 2 Draconis honor guards who looked like they could bench press a small spacecraft. Dr. Rodriguez, Grimm said, you are under arrest for practicing medicine without proper certification, performing illegal surgical procedures, and he stopped when he saw Korrath sitting up on the examination table, looking significantly less dead than before. One of the honor guards stepped forward. Korrath of the Flamewing clan, you have brought dishonor to our people by accepting treatment from an inferior species. Korrath looked at the honor guard, then at me, then back at the honor guard. Inferior species? He stood up, his full 8-foot height making everyone else in the room suddenly feel very small. This human doctor saved my life with skills that none of our healers possess. She extracted poison crystals from my secondary heart with precision that would make a master surgeon weep with envy. And you call her inferior? The honor guard stammered something about protocol and proper procedures. The only thing inferior here, Korrath continued, his voice rising to a roar, is your understanding of what constitutes true strength. This human risked her career, her freedom, and her life to save someone she barely knew. That is the mark of a true warrior. 3 hours later, I was sitting in Director Grimm's office, officially suspended from practice pending a full investigation. My medical license was under review, my clinic was closed, and I was facing enough charges to keep me in legal trouble for the next decade. I'd never been happier. So let me get this straight, Grimm said, reading from his report. In the span of 6 hours, you manipulated a Draconis warrior into accepting medical treatment, broke into a high-security vault, stole restricted medical supplies, performed illegal surgery on an alien species, and somehow convinced the Draconis honor guard that you're a warrior worthy of respect. That about sums it up, yeah? And your defense is that you were saving a life. Pretty much. Me. Grimm set down the report and looked at me with something that might have been admiration if he hadn't been trying so hard to look disapproving. Dr. Rodriguez, in my 20 years as a security director, I have never encountered anyone quite like you. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't meant as one. He picked up another folder. However, I've received some interesting communications in the past hour. The Draconis High Command has formally requested that you be granted honorary warrior status. Apparently, Korrath has been telling everyone who'll listen about the human warrior healer who saved his life. Honorary warrior status? It comes with diplomatic immunity, a ceremonial weapon, and the right to challenge anyone who insults your honor to single combat. That sounds both awesome and terrifying. Additionally, Grimm continued, Captain Vex has paid all the fines associated with your various violations and has offered to sponsor you for a private medical practice that specializes in treating species that other doctors won't touch. Why would Vex do that? Apparently, word is spreading that there's a human doctor crazy enough to break into GOG vaults and perform impossible surgeries to save her patients. Do you have any idea how valuable that reputation is in the outer sectors? I thought about it. Very? Extremely. There are entire species that refuse standard medical treatment because of cultural taboos or physiological incompatibilities. You've just proven that a human doctor can successfully treat anyone, anywhere, regardless of the obstacles. So what happens now? Now you get a choice. You can accept the suspension, undergo retraining, and return to practicing safe, legal, boring medicine. Or he slid a data pad across the desk. You can accept this offer. I picked up the pad and read the proposal. It was an offer to establish a private clinic in the frontier sectors, treating patients that no one else would take. The pay was incredible. The working conditions were described as challenging. And the legal protection was provided by some very interesting backers. Who exactly is offering this? Let's just say you've made some powerful friends today. Friends who appreciate doctors willing to break a few rules to save lives. There was a knock at the door, and Korrath entered, moving with the fluid grace of someone who definitely had two working hearts again. He was carrying something wrapped in ceremonial cloth. "Human doctor," he said formally, "I have come to present you with a gift from the Flamewing clan." He unwrapped the cloth to reveal a sword that looked like it had been forged from crystallized fire. The blade gleamed with an inner light, and the hilt was inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift and move when I looked at them. "This is Flame Heart," Korrath said, "a weapon carried by the greatest warriors of my clan. It is yours, as a symbol of your status as a warrior healer." "I can't accept this. It's too valuable, and I don't even know how to use a sword." "Then you will learn. A warrior must be prepared for any battle, whether it is fought with blade or scalpel." Grim cleared his throat. "Dr. Rodriguez, I need your decision." I looked at the sword, then at the job offer, then at Korrath, who was waiting with the patient expression of someone who had all the time in the world. "You know what the really crazy part is?" I said finally. 6 months ago, I was just another burned-out doctor treating humans on a boring space station. Now I'm apparently a warrior healer with diplomatic immunity and a magic sword. "Is that a yes?" Graham asked. "That's a hell yes." I picked up the sword, surprised by how perfectly balanced it felt in my hands. "But I have one condition." "Which is?" "I want Bert to come with me. And Zeke. And I want Captain Vex as my business partner." "Even after today's disaster?" "Especially after today's disaster. Anyone can run a smooth operation when everything goes right. It takes real skill to succeed when everything goes wrong." Korrath laughed, a sound like distant thunder. "You truly are insane, human doctor. This is why your species is both feared and respected throughout the galaxy. You are the only beings crazy enough to risk everything for a stranger, break every rule to do what's right, and somehow make it work. Is that why humans have such a reputation out here?" "Partly, but mostly it's because you're the only species that looks at an impossible situation and thinks, 'I bet I can make this work if I just try hard enough.' Most species see obstacles and give up. Humans see obstacles and get creative. And that's a good thing? It's a terrifying thing. Which, in the galaxy we live in, makes it a very good thing indeed." I stood up, officially accepting both the job offer and the sword. Well then, I guess I'd better live up to the reputation. As I walked out of Grimm's office, carrying a legendary weapon and planning to open a medical practice that would probably get me killed, I realized something important. I'd never felt more like myself in my entire life. Sometimes being absolutely insane is exactly what the galaxy needs. And sometimes, the best way to save a life is to risk everything, break all the rules, and trust that your particular brand of human stubbornness will see you through. After all, that's what we humans are good at, making the impossible look easy, one disaster at a time.